Welcome to the only show that matters, Common Filth Radio, episode 107. Thanks for being here. Listen to my appearance on the Rebel Yell program. The link to that is below. Thank you to the folks over at Rebel Yell for having me on. It was a good time, a good episode. They put on a hell of a show over there. Check it out. Also, listen to the newest episode of Common Filth Extra episode 35. Yeah, it's been busy over here, but that's what I do. I have this episode available for free this week. It is a very, very important episode. You need to listen to it. Do not miss out on this edition of Common Filth Extra. It is of the utmost importance that you listen to it. Again, available for free. You can pay if you want, but you don't have to. That's on commonfilthradio.bandcamp.com. I finally read the article in full where the homophobia is Jewish meme came from. Came from a prominent white identity leader. And this is, you're going to listen in full what he wants for white people. You know, in the black community, they have something called, they call it down low, where these guys who are ostensibly in heterosexual relationships who screw around with other men on the side. This is what this guy advocates for, among many other things, for white people. Because according to people like Grindr, Greggy, it's okay if white people do it. It's traditional. If you don't follow Common Filth on Twitter, and you should, we've been engaged in a hashtag campaign culturally appropriated from black people. And the hashtag is Stop White People. Now, if I may pull that up, some samples from that hashtag, because we always post an image right along with it. As it loads, here we go. Most recently, an advertisement I saw on some website, I don't know what, they're selling a shirt, a tank top, called Shootback, hashtag Shootback tank top. And it's or the homosexual sodomite flag combined with the Gadsden flag, don't tread on me. And another one, a young Irish boy holding up both an Irish flag and a sodomite flag. The other one, under the hashtag Stop White People, I added this myself. Stop white people out of love and concern. The internet raised you because your mom has bad taste in men. What was the image? The image is to a link on some blog. The title of the blog post is Esoteric Kekism, or Kek as a Bodhisattva of Racial Enlightenment. The other one, a series of suggested related YouTube videos on the side panel they have on every YouTube video. Lee male to female vlog, how I self-inject testosterone. So it's a woman ruining her body with hormones. FTM transgender, how I do my testosterone shot. FTM self-injection tips. Kai FTM painless intramuscular T injections. FTM, then T means testosterone. FTM, how I inject my testosterone. That's another image posted under the hashtag Stop White People. And every single one of the thumbnails features a white person ruining their bodies with hormones that some doctor prescribed to them. Because they feel the XYZ. They feel like they're born in the wrong body, even though they don't have any point of reference. Another one. Grover Norquist said, I spoke with Bruce Jenner at a Hollywood Friends of Abe dinner. He is a solid Reagan Republican. Good on taxes. Leave him alone. Well, that's a misgender, that you're using the wrong pronouns there, but the point still stands. Why do we feel the need to pay tribute to insane, crazy people? Another one, a guy dressed in drag, simple enough. Oh, here's another one. This was sent to me, actually. A girl saying, it's not cheating if it's your boyfriend's mom, right? That's the caption with an image of this girl kissing the boyfriend's mom on the lips. Her boyfriend's mom. And also they're in a parking lot. They both have a can of Four Loko in their hands. Another, a Tinder screenshot featuring a white woman. I'm looking to buy bud tonight. Bud being marijuana. Anyone help, please. And it seems she has a child in the backseat, or at least a younger sibling. And then men dressed in drag for an advertisement called Goddess, shop now. Oh, another one, Gosford Anglican Church. Their sign that says, marriage equality, for God's sake, Just do it. Another one to white people with the Bernie Sanders tattoos. Another one, a man dressed in drag. This one from some Anglo nation, because it's written in English. Safe and confidential healthcare services for teens and young adults ages 12 to 29. Are you a young person who is living on the streets, might be lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, or questioning? Want an HIV or STD test, or is living with HIV? It's STD testing for 12-year-olds, 12 to 29-year-olds. So that includes 12, 13, 14, 15, and so on. And another one, I believe I read this last week. Shadi is male. Right, gets a kiss from boyfriend Ian Guthrie while washing dishes in their home in Boise, Idaho on Friday, September 9th, 2016. Ismail, a Syrian refugee, says about his new life in Boise, Idaho. I didn't think I would be alive to experience life in the U.S. I wish everyone had what we had, as the white queer is leaned over his Syrian rent boy. God, it's just... Oh, here's another one. Recently, Appalachian State University and the University of Miami had a football game. And apparently this is taken at a Appalachian State sorority house. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 white girls, 5 of which are blonde. They have a sign on their home that says, Miami doesn't do butt stuff, but we do. # we are App State. Another one. We live in a heteropatriarchy, a YouTube channel. Another guy, cross-dressing, like in a ladies' bathing suit with a Make America Great Again hat. All under the # Stop White People, probably created by a black individual, so we're engaged in some cultural appropriation there, but these are all behaviors that need to be stopped. Oh, Rivers Cuomo of Weezer says, we're all bisexual. That was a retweet, which we added. # Stop White People. All of these behaviors need to be stopped. Now I'm going to read this comment that was made about me. It says, I think people here hate him because he blames white people solely or almost solely for the degeneracy he covers and advocates for white genocide based on this. I never really watched him much either, so you just read tweets. That's the black person's preferred mode of communication too. And you're going to tell me you have the low-high time preference? Listen here. It's either we stop this, we stop paying tribute to people like Peter Tatchell. Who's that, you ask? A gay rights activist, ex-Labour parliamentary candidate, now a member of the Green Party. The Guardian, back in June 1997, said, in a 1997 letter to The Guardian, Tatchell defended an academic book about boy love, calling the work courageous before writing. The positive nature of some child-adult sexual relationships is not confined to non-Western cultures. Several of my friends, gay and straight, male and female, had sex with adults from ages 9 to 13. None feel they were abused. All say it was their conscious choice and gave them great joy. While it may be impossible to condone pedophilia, it's time society acknowledged the truth that not all sex involving children is unwanted, abusive, and harmful, unquote. Those are his words. We stop paying tribute to people like that, or else we will deserve genocide. The world will be better off if we are genocided. Most whites are incapable of stopping themselves from embarking on the path of sodomy, the path of hermaphroditism, the path of child sexualization, through the acceptance and promotion and celebration of sodomy. And I just documented a few examples among millions. And the best response anybody can come up with is, well, others do it too. Yes, others who are either collapsed at the end of their usefulness, at the end of their civilization's life cycle, or they haven't started yet. So tell me, why do you want to emulate those behaviors? What benefit is there in protecting the behavior which emulates third world savages? Tell me. I don't care if they have the same political rhetoric as you. I used to be that stupid and think, well, maybe they're fine if they have opinions about X, Y, and Z. No, I'm not that stupid anymore, and it's time for you to stop being that stupid. If whites do not cease framing evil as something good, preferable, virtuous, then white genocide will be a moral necessity. There's a reason why we bury our dead. They're unclean, harbingers for filth. You don't keep a dead body around. I don't care how good their political rhetoric is. Over the last few weeks, a pattern has emerged in the form of heroin stories. It all started with a story about heroin, a heroin epidemic in West Virginia and Ohio. Not too long after that, we talked about the story that talking about the grandmother and her boyfriend overdosing in the front seat of a vehicle while her grandchild is in the back seat. And that was in one of the Carolinas. This time we go to Massachusetts. A story about one of the most disturbing videos I've ever seen. This is from NECN.com. Police release shocking video of mother passed out from apparent overdose. The 2-year-old seen tugging at her... 2 years old. The 2-year-old seen tugging at her unresponsive mother's sleeve was taken into custody by the Department of Children and Families. Now, there's another perfect encapsulation of white America. A white woman passed out from a drug overdose. Was it heroin? Yep, it was heroin. Either fentanyl or heroin. But the video, you see this little girl tugging on her mom's arm, trying to get her to get up, while the mom is passed out in an aisle at a Family Dollar. A Family Dollar store. It's a white woman, too. Filmed by somebody speaking a language other than English, as far as I can tell. This little girl is crying, you can hear her. She has no idea what's going on, she just knows something is very wrong. Shocking video emerged Wednesday of a mother passed out from an apparent overdose as her young daughter watched in horror. Police in Lawrence, Massachusetts released the video which shows the mother on the floor of a Family Dollar as her daughter desperately tries to wake her up. It's heartbreaking. This is definitely evidence that shows what addiction can do to someone and what happens when they use these types of narcotics, Lawrence Police Chief James Fitzpatrick said. Officers found residue and paraphernalia consistent with either fentanyl or heroin in the mother's bag, according to Fitzpatrick. She was revived with Narcan and then transported to Lawrence General Hospital. Police said she will be charged with child endangerment. You see someone in the throes of addiction like that, what they're willing to sacrifice, Fitzpatrick said. I don't know if they have that thought process about what they're sacrificing to feed their addiction. Overdose cases involving children only account for about 10% of the overdoses police respond to in Lawrence. However, it's become part of a much bigger problem. I think it's indicative of so many things going on in our society right now, said Deanna Cruz, who helps run an opioid prevention program for Merrimack Valley. Cruz did not watch the video out of respect for the family involved. She also questioned why someone would film the incident rather than step in to assist. Thankfully somebody did. If that video gets one person to wake up and realize what's happening, that something is very wrong, then it was worth filming in some way. Which reminds me, open safe spaces in Seattle, King County for heroin use. Task Force says this is only this is a little more than a week ago this story came out, was released. It says, SeattleTimes.com, a task force is recommending the creation of sites in King County to provide medical supervision for people using illegal drugs like heroin, which would be the first in the U.S. Okay, this just begs the question. You need to get them off. You need to get them off the drugs. How do you do that? If you can't do that, what do you do? Oh, you just give them a safe space. That'll get them to stop. What are they doing in the Philippines? That's something nobody's tried, and it seems to be working out for them pretty good. That's in Seattle. So we've gone from Washington to Massachusetts, West Virginia, Ohio, one of the Carolinas, I don't remember which one, but one of those. All full of junkies. Let's go north of the border, Canada. Canada has just approved prescription heroin. The Canadian government has quietly approved new drug regulations that will permit doctors to prescribe pharmaceutical-grade heroin to treat severe addicts who have not responded to more conventional approaches. Again, What are they doing over in the Philippines? That's an unconventional approach. How about you do that, you fucking poof? Trudeau, you sodomite. Of course a sodomite prime minister would be all for the institutionalization of drug use. Heroin's a human right, bro. But I thought the sodomite drug of choice was crystal meth. Or what is it now? Prep and Truvada? Oh, I'm sorry, those aren't recreational. But Prep and Truvada, anti-AIDS medication is also a human right per this retard. The Canadian government has quietly approved new drug regulations. Okay, I already read that. The move means that Crosstown, a trailblazing clinic in Vancouver, will be able to expand its special heroin maintenance program in which addicts come in as many as 3 times a day and receive prescribed injections of legally attained heroin from a nurse free. The program is the only one of its kind in Canada and the US, but is similar to the approach taken in 8 European countries. Oh yeah, those are people we want to emulate. Let's emulate Europe. Islam is eating Europe's lunch and having consensual sex with European women, as it turns out. We'll get to that in a little bit. The move by Prime Minister Justin Trudeau's government last week is another step in reversing the policies of the previous government run by conservatives and taking a less draconian approach to the fight against addiction and drug abuse. How draconian could it be compared to the Philippines? If you have a problem, you don't tiptoe around it like a pussy ballerina. Reminds me of a comment I got. I don't know how these people find my channel, but they do. They said that homos and trannies aren't a problem. Nihilism is a problem. Listen to yourselves. Look at the words you type on YouTube comment sections. You are saying women who inject testosterone ruin their bodies. Men who ruin their bodies by mutilating their genitals aren't nihilists personified. You are saying that males who use their God-given facility to give life on that which can only give viruses, bacterial infections, you're telling me these aren't nihilists personified. It's the same kind of begging of the question that leftists engage in. You say, okay, we have a birth rate problem, we need to have more babies. Well, we'll just bring in more immigrants. Okay, well, we could bring in more immigrants, but immigrants need to have babies too. Moron. You think immigrants are born out of diversity and pixie dust? Again, same thing. It's incredible. These retarded right-wingers who say that nihilism is a problem. Yet they say it's the problem. Okay, this is what they put forth. They say it's the problem. This comment says that nihilism is the problem, not homos and trannies. Yet they think those who perfectly personify and represent the nihilistic outlook aren't a problem. I'm not that stupid. You are, but not me. Speaking of diversity pixie dust, from the Daily Mail, the British women going to the jungle for sex with migrants. Whistleblower claims some aid workers have multiple partners in a day. Calais volunteers have been accused of having sex with camp migrants. Whistleblowers claim some are having several sexual partners in one day. It is alleged some volunteers are suing the camp as a free-for-all festival. Some aid workers said the allegations should have been kept private. Oh, wouldn't that benefit you? Calais aid workers volunteering in the jungle have been accused of having sex with migrants, some of whom are believed to be underaged. According to a whistleblower, again, white women aping the mating patterns of the sodomite. This is why they hang out with each other. They're kindred spirits, right? The revelations have caused a furious row on Facebook, with some volunteers claiming the allegations should have remained secret and criticized the whistleblower for expressing his concern. Who are you to judge love, you bigot? According to the whistleblower, some volunteers avail of the service of the jungle camp prostitutes, while others have multiple partners in one day. Oh, here we go. One whistleblower revealed the extent of sexual abuse of vulnerable refugees at the jungle camp at the hands of unscrupulous aid workers, some of whom used the women as prostitutes. So it's men and women. That's wonderful. The whistleblower said, I heard of boys believed to be underage, the age of consent, having sex with volunteers. I've heard stories of men using the prostitutes in the jungle too. I've heard volunteers having sex with multiple partners in one day, only to carry on in the same vein the following day. And I know that I'm only hearing a small part of a wider scale of abuse. Other aid workers have complained that unscrupulous volunteers are treating the camp like a free-for-all festival and find it difficult to keep it in their pants. The original allegations were aired on a Facebook thread concerning the people-to-people solidarity group, which has since been deleted. It was claimed that female volunteers were more likely to have sex with male migrants than any other combination. And that was actually the previous headline before Daily Mail edited the headline. One volunteer was described as having a bad reputation for sleeping with male refugees and was asked to leave the camp. One male volunteer had to be persuaded by other male volunteers against returning to his, due to his inappropriate behavior with female refugees. Everyone, it's like this. It's like the bell curve. It's like, it starts off low on one end, goes up, and then comes back down and flatlines at the other end, like to near zero, right? That's what civilization is. And at both ends of the bell curve, you get the same kind of behavior. It's worse if you're at the end of that trajectory, because you're fallen. You should know better, but you don't, which is the definition of a fool. Some volunteers have claimed critics are more interested in maintaining their reputation than preventing further incidents of sexual abuse in a similar manner to the Catholic Church. The whistleblower has prompted a furious row on a volunteering Facebook page. One commenter described relationships between volunteers and migrants as inappropriate. Turn up your volume and you might hear the trains. So yeah, one commenter described the relationships between volunteers and migrants as inappropriate. In my view, most defo beyond inappropriate. Breaches all sorts of codes, highlights massive deceit of integrity, blurs reciprocal boundaries beyond measure. Ugh. Pretty much no different to sex tourism. This is the only sort of stuff that makes others with better resolve cringe. Need to have a rock-solid mindset that separates the camp environment from that of a free-for-all festival. If you're incapable of keeping it in your pants, then consider whether you ought to be there. It's interesting. Southeast Asia is a place very known. It's very famous for its sex tourism. I would like to know how many crusty old Brits are keeping that propped up. How many crusty old Brits have played their role in keeping that a viable operation. According to the original post, the whistleblower claimed, I've heard of boys believed to be under the age of consent having sex with volunteers. I already read that part. And I also know that I'm only hearing a small part of wider scale abuse. Read that part. Several volunteers severely criticized the whistleblower for discussing the abuse allegations in an open forum. Fuck you. Fuck you. Fuck you.
Just shut up. Don't say anything about anything, okay? It's nice and pleasant here with lots of love happening. Just shut up.
How'd that Screwdriver song go? Europe awake for the white man's sake? Is this what they had in mind? However, one volunteer defended him, claiming it always really worries me that we're more concerned with the press / our reputation than we are with the sexual abuse itself. A good point. According to The Independent, some volunteers believe sexual relationships between aid workers and refugees is natural, while others believe it breaks the usual codes of conduct. Getting fucked by an illiterate feral savage is natural? Oh, I guess in a primitive sense. It's all primitive people care about is getting their tingles. I talked about the danger of cunnilingus last week, and people got very mad at that. So it goes to show you where their priorities are. And it matches up with the assertions I have made over the last year that that's all white people give a fuck about anymore. I desire no association with that kind of mindset. Well, that's a mindset we are hell-bent on having. In my experience, and in experiences of those I talk to, you can talk about most subjects. You can have opinions that are beyond the pale that contradict the social orthodoxy, and they don't mind too much. But once you get to the subject of their cummies, they get very defensive. In fact, they get very angry when you have even a notion that appears to threaten their ability to get their cummies, to get their nut, to get their orgasms. You can cross any line, but that's the line you can't cross in the eyes of so many people, in the perception of so many people. And why is this? Because we tell ourselves that those who represent the most sexual beings, the most sexually liberated beings, well, yeah, cum and freedom are conflated. They're given the same attribute. And we in the West, white people, we have an almost pagan devotion to freedom. I figured out that a lot of people value the homosexual above all else back in the day when I was reading a lot of libertarian blogs. So they saw the homosexual as the height of liberty. Like, they have achieved in their lives the ideal of liberty, which is why people are very sensitive when you tell the truth about what the sodomite really does, how they really are. I found this attitude to be prevalent, not just in obscure, fringe political blogs. It is through my dealings with the common people in broaching these subjects that I find that this is what most people value above all else. Why would they react in such a way if they didn't? So these Calais workers, these Calais aid workers, these people monitoring refugee camps, they also represent an ideal of freedom. 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 What's next? Oh, here's some great liberation right here from thesun.co.uk. Quote, I let my husband sleep with other men, unquote. Wife of 22 years insists her decision to give her bisexual man freedom saved their marriage. Again, freedom, freedom, freedom. And says they want each other more than ever. Leanna Walden was initially devastated when her husband admitted he'd cheated. My husband brought home the gay germ. But I was homophobic for being devastated. Oh, in the side panel, I had sex with my best friend's long-term ex, and now I have to keep it a painful secret. Again, this is from a British rag, a UK rag. Doesn't seem too much different than what's going on in America. Again, I like to bring up the subject of, daytime TV talk shows. Jerry Springer, Maury Povich, Steve Wilkos, and on and on and on. And even the judge shows. Solving the problems, giving attention to the problems of working class proles. And this is how they act. They aren't growing these people in a lab. Nor are they forcing them to behave like this. They're just benefiting from it. These are two white people, if you could even call them that. More like subhumans. Again, this woman says that she lets her husband sleep with other men, wife of 22 years. Another example of why white people need to be stopped. You need to do it out of concern for their sake. Somebody's got to pay for this. It's not like these actions that they happen in a vacuum. It's not like again, this was brought up on the guest appearance I did on the Rebel Yell. Again, we socialize the cost for this shit. Think of the girl who pops her cherry a little too soon to some idiot who's like, oh, that was easy. Next. That girl he does that to is going to have a shitty attitude for the rest of her life. She's going to dye her hair some strange color, shave the side of her head, and yell rape anytime she feels sexually betrayed, causing undue strain on the legal system. Again, that's just one example. How are the costs of this going to be socialized? Oi, me husband got the HIV, the HIV, from engaging in a little buggery with his buddies down at the pub. The gay pub, mind you. That's how he got it. Oi, now I have to go to jail for being homophobic. But you can pay for his HIV medication. That's right proper, ain't it? May our pagan gods bless the NHS. Why pay for your own healthcare when other people can do it? What a fucking nightmare. Leanna Walden, 52, has been married to Mark, 54, for 22 years. He'd broke the news he'd been cheating with men when they were on holiday 8 years ago, and although initially she was devastated, Leanna soon realized she could play things to her advantage. Of course, like the Twitter guy, so you be saying, he made this, and I retweeted it, and it's fantastic. Let me find it. I'm gonna hold up here, I'm gonna find it. It is the Big Book of Anglo Lies, and we're gonna read it. Here we go. The Big Book of Anglo Lies. Life is meaningless. Do what makes you feel good. Everything is subjective. Anyone saying the opposite is objectively bad. Other people only exist to be used for your pleasure or as scapegoats. Now there she is. You using the fourth commandment in the big Anglo book of lies. Big book of Anglo lies. Other people only exist to be used for your pleasure or as a scapegoat. And now she's gonna play things to her advantage. So nimble, the Anglo mind. We were on holiday, hiking on a mountain when Mark, 54, my husband, said we needed to talk. Mark told me he had been sleeping with other blokes and was bisexual. I was devastated, but I didn't want to be like my sister or friends and get a divorce because I still loved Mark. I did go into shock. Okay, well, she uses the word love. All right, keep that in mind. Keep that in mind what your average whitey thinks love is. All right, we all know that when they say love, they mean come. She's just like, oh, I like his pecker. I like his pecker. That's what she says. I wasn't as upset about him fooling around as I was about him lying to me. Fuck. You might be bringing me home all of these potentially deadly diseases and infections, but it's the lies that hurt the most. Priorities. I was feeling jealous that he had started experimenting. I didn't want the same relationship anymore. I said, if you're going to do that, then I would like to experiment too. Leanna, pictured with their children, believed hers and Mark's relationship is they've bred. It's all over, guys. If these are the kind of people that are having white babies, done. Bye. Bye bye. Bye. Bye bye. Stop white people. Accelerate white genocide. It's deserved. Bye. Bye bye. It's like, I don't see Asian people making a fucking public display of themselves like this. Whatever their problems may be. I don't see them going to the Sun, telling them all that about the embarrassing shit that they do. All of the shame they've caused their family. I don't see them adding more shame upon it. I kicked myself for not realizing he'd been seeing men for 2 years, but I wasn't prepared to give up and destroy a marriage, our lives and everything. Well, that's what he was doing. So I thought outside the box. This was when Leanna decided the pair who have 2 children should have an open relationship. These are rotten trees bearing rotten fruit. They've had kids, the damage is done, and so it will go on for yet another generation. And so it will go for another generation in the Philippines. Here's a sidebar. World's most depraved kid killer. Pedo's sick campaign of child rape and murder is so horrific the Philippines plan to what? Bring back the death penalty just to execute him. Evil Peter Scully, so here you go, another crusty old British fag. Oh, I'm sorry, Australian. Much different, right? To go back, we'll put that one on the back burner for now. We'll continue with Leanna and her sodomite husband and her sodomite children. And look at them, they're all smiling, they're all happy. Ha ha ha. We're getting our asses handed to us by Islam, but isn't life great? You deserve it, you cunts. Oh, is that a word you like to use? You cunt? You cunt? If this is how people conduct themselves, if this is what people tolerate, this is what people find permissible, then they deserve any invasion they get. Hate to break it to you, but this is not something you want to preserve for its own sake in its present manifestation. It doesn't deserve it. In fact, the world would be better off without it. Because it's people like this that give us people like Peter Scully who go to the Philippines and rape children. So now they have an open relationship, an open marriage. Because that changes it. Yeah, this is it. This is another pagan idol of worship. Consent. As long as everybody agrees, which I explained to you is how, 11-year-olds interact with each other. Dude, can I jump over your face with my BMX, with my Huffy? Sure. You land on the kid's face, he runs crying to his mom. You said it was okay. That's these people. They're children who never grew up. Mark could see his male friends, and I could have flings with other people as well, she said. We'd also indulge in threesomes as a part of a shared experience. What, of debauchery and treachery? You know, things that are shared are not always good. Shared debauchery and treachery, that's not a good thing. Doesn't matter if people consent. Doesn't matter if you know what's going on, treachery is still treachery. Jesus Christ knew what Judas was going to do to him. It did not change in one bit the nature of what Judas was about to do, and eventually did. We'd put aside time to be together and time to play away. We really wanted to be together but free each other to do what we wanted to do sexually. See, this is interesting. She wanted to keep it together for the sake of being different from her family, which tells you how prevalent it is within white societies. Divorce. I've seen it myself. And so too does she see it. But instead of doing the right thing and separating herself from this nightmare of a situation, she too gives herself over to vile, reprobate things. You gotta hear that. It is an active night on the rails. Active. I like it. Something soothing about it. Instead of being divorced, she'd rather be a vile, reprobate sodomite and continue to promote it. Not only in her family and her life, but throughout her society. And who's gonna pay the cost? We all do. And now what's this? Oh, Daily Stormer. Anyone defending Milo Yiannopoulos at this point is a traitor. Okay, so the point at which he said that pederast relationships, there's a lot to be learned from them. That's what he said. He said, I had very positive experiences with those. That's what he said about them. Predatory relationships between men and little boys he thinks are great. So at that point, supporting him or defending him, that's not being traitorous. What about his protest with Gavin McInnes where they tongue-kissed each other in protest of the Pulse nightclub shooting? I mean, it's not like their protest was any different than the other talking points you heard out of that sphere, out of that political sphere. The alt lifestyle, whatever the fuck it is. You heard them all say, this is an attack on Western values. This is the West versus Islam. What? The West is a nightclub that facilitates the sodomitic mating ritual full of La Raza. That's West. That's Western. But no, he dresses in drag and shit talks on a metapolitical movement that people say that he's the leader of. So, look, you gotta adjust your priorities, guys. That's where you draw the line. I think you need to draw it a little bit closer. I think you need to draw it somewhere else. All right. Now, somebody sent me a clip from that event, an event which featured two white rappers yelling about Harambe. Dicks out for Harambe. And this made me think of something else. This made me think of how people bitch about race mixing being promoted in commercial advertising, television, movies. Made me think about that. Here's the rub with miscegenation in media. You need actors and actresses to agree to be portrayed in such a way. There needs to be a lot of white men and white women who are willing to give their consent to be portrayed as someone who gallivants with minorities. Nobody's forcing them to promote this. Nobody. They only have themselves to blame, and you can only blame them. We try to pass it off. It's human nature. But be honest with yourself. It's all on us. In this situation, white people making asses out of themselves. It's on us. Question and comment thread for Common Filth Radio episode 107 on the official Common Filth subreddit. Let's lock the thread here so no new replies leak through. And we'll get started. You can participate if you'd like to hear your comment read on the show. If you'd like to hear your question read on the show and elaborated on by me, you can participate. It's an open thread to anybody who has a Reddit account. And it's up there every week. Different thread up there every week. So this one says, salutations, Comor of the McFilthin clan. Calmer of the McFilthin clan. Anyways, I haven't asked a question, comment in like a month or two, but school started up a little bit ago, and both my English and history teachers have LGBT propaganda in their rooms. The English teacher is a white guy who is all about Black Lives Matter. I tell you this to give some sort of context of what kind of people I'm around daily. It's not just the teachers. My high school is a festering maggot hole of feminists, atheists, faggots. porn addicts, esoteric Trumpists, and Black Lives Matters. Yeah, Black Lives Matter, yeah, okay. BLMS. My question this week is, if anyone tries to indoctrinate me in bullshit, should I politely decline and just take the grade, briefly state my views and sit down, or actually have a real discussion and pull out my deadly arsenal of moral counterpoints and truth? No, that's the worst thing you can do. Because you're in school, you have rooms where there's feel-good sodomite art on the walls. You're not going to get anywhere. Nobody's going to take you seriously, unfortunately. Alright, this is one of the few spaces where I will take you seriously. Because young or old, it's either right or wrong. And you know what? You're right. Whatever you're gonna say, you're right, but they won't see it that way. They'll just like, whatever, look at this guy, he doesn't believe this, that's all it'll amount to. It's unfortunate, but it's true. And I'm sorry. I'm sorry you have to be in that kind of environment. It sucks. Nobody should be in that kind of environment. I've been more vocal about my views than I have in the past lately, and have formed a group of friends whose views are similar, and I'm making progress in showing them the bright truth of the lighthouse on the rock. They're in the shallows of the raging sea. Only my Twitter followers will really get that. Anyway, thanks for the read and answer. God bless. P.S. In case it hasn't been said already, what is the drink of the week? My cup is empty, unfortunately, so there is no drink. I could walk a few feet to the kitchen, but there's just no drink right now. I did have water in this cup most recently. No, it's not Gatorade, unfortunately. Which, by the way, the guy that does Food Wishes, Chef John, made a homemade Gatorade recipe video. And I recommend everybody checks that out, because it's a very good video. I didn't know you can make your own Gatorade at home, and now I see how easy it is. And I'm going to make Gatorade at home. Hi, Juan. Just wanted to show you a Yahoo Answers post I discovered from a white female, no less. She says, homosexuality can be found in over 1,500 different animal species. Transgenderism can be found in at least 100. Homophobia is only found in humans, and even then it did not really come to power until, around 3,500 years ago, and that originated with and around Judaism, where later Christianity and in Islam enforced it even more. Ancient Romans did not care if you were gay or trans, neither did the Vikings. We was Vikings. The ancient Chinese, the Mayans, the Indus Valley people, or the Zulus. Homophobia is a newish invention prompted up by religious lunatics for the purpose of controlling people. TLDR, we was Romans having man-boy love and shit. Only Jews hate the gays, yeah? That was the crux of the episode that I just did. That's available for free right now on Bandcamp, commonfilthradio.bandcamp.com. Common Filth Extra, episode 30, what? Was it 35? I really hope I said 35, because I'm not going back to edit that. Was it? Please tell me it was. Yes, it was. Home safe, home free. Yep, and think about this. They use the behavior of animals, base creatures, primitive creatures, to justify their deviance. You don't want to be around anybody who doesn't want to be any better than a fish. Observe the societies and civilizations they use as an example of tolerant societies. They're has-beens, or they never were. They never were. Really, we want to follow the example of the Zulus. We want to follow the example of the Vikings, the Mayans. We really want to follow the example of people who engaged in ritual child sacrifice. Why do white people want to be base, primitive creatures? I don't understand it. You're smarter than that, apparently, which is bullshit. IQ only gives you the power of rationalization to rationalize your depravity, your filth, your destruction you cause to everyone around you. That's all it is, and here's proof of it. We was Zulus. We was Zulus. Ancient Romans, nothing bad happened to them. They use fallen failed societies as reason why we should tolerate them. Hey, these miserable failure people, they accepted sodomy. Why shouldn't we? Oh, maybe because we don't want to fail? We don't want to be miserable failures like they were? Nobody learns. Common nigga filth at it with the gat. Pew pew nigga ass motherfucker. How about you come down to that LA hood and bear your spick ass to my 9, nigga? Shit. Or no, she they say.
I really like the white women. I prefer it up here. I have a white wife, a gringo wife. I teach her how to make tortilla. Now she's a good wife.
There are people out there who think I'm Mexican. They hate diversity yet have never been exposed to any of it. And they call places like Utah cook states. They have no idea what they want. It's hard to know what people are really like when you're on EBT and you got a Twitter account. Which, by the way, I donate to the Outlaw World Missionary Church, Pastor James David Manning's church. Can't do that with EBT. Yo, Tyrone Filth, do you have any long-term plans for your channel? Do you see what you're doing as just within the confines of this community, or do you want to reach many more people and make a much bigger difference? Is that even a distinction you make when it comes to your channel? On a different topic, do you have any advice for anyone considering talking on a larger scale than just anonymous, obscure comments? Whether it be making videos, blogging, or what have you. What lessons have you learned from making common filth? The biggest thing is having a focus and being your own man, and not worrying about making friends. If you're worried about making friends, you're not going to get anywhere. It's nice to have a community of like-minded people who do similar shit to what you do, but you know what? It's not going to get you anywhere. Didn't get me anywhere until I started being my own man. And that's what you got to be. You got to be your own man in anything. Whether it's doing something public like this, or whether it's in business, or welding, whatever it may be. You got to be your own man. In art, whatever it is, you name it. You have to be your own man. Pay no concern to anybody else. Don't bother paying tribute to anybody else. You give thanks to those that allow you to do this, which in this case, it's my audience, which I do. I'm always thankful for every ear that listens to this show. And don't give a shit about what anybody thinks. Whatever they might say about you, whatever the lies they tell about you. Tell yourself that they can blow it out their asses. And long-term plans for the channel. I always keep it moving forward. I always have different ideas of stuff I'd like to do, people I'd like to do stuff with. There are a couple of things in development right now that I don't like to talk about because if I talk about them, they won't happen. So I will refrain from doing so here. And, the more people, the better. I'm not going to lie, the more, it'd be nice to have a lot of people listening to me. So, yeah, I'm not discriminating against who can get anything out of what I do here. If you agree with the various messages that I have to say, welcome aboard. Story related to in episode 6 about that person's sister has inspired me to tell my own story about my brother. For some context, I'm the eldest of 6 kids, grew up with both parents, though my father worked a lot, and when he was home, he was rarely engaged with the family. So basically, it was a single mother household. My brother is a year younger than me, and my other siblings are a few years younger than the both of us. So we were very close as kids. But when middle school came around, he started to take the wrong path in life. He started smoking pot in middle school. They start him young, don't they? And hanging around bad influences. It wasn't long before he was a full-blown wigger, for lack of a better term. That was 6 years ago. And that time he's only gotten worse. The first truly terrible thing he did was robbing our family. He got one of his black friends to come to our house and steal all the valuables. My mother treated this like a one-time thing and moved on. He then got himself arrested for stealing a firearm, but again, mother didn't care. One Thanksgiving, he stole $1,000 and a revolver from our grandparents, swept it under the rug. They swept it under the rug, your family. Around that time, I was working during the summer at my uncle's place, so I wasn't home. While I was gone, he trashed my room and stole most of my things. I felt so betrayed by him and my mother for allowing that to happen. She actually offered me money as compensation, as if the problem was that I lost material things. Oh, that's awful. At that point, I started to recognize the problem behind my brother's actions. I stopped pretending that everything was all right. He started to hate me because I didn't blindly accept who he was. This is who I am. This is my culture, not a costume. It's like your brother's. It's sodomite logic.
You're not okay with me for doing horrible things. Fuck you.
Sodomite logic is a very dangerous thing. So he started to hate me because I didn't blindly accept who he was. One day, he outright attacked me, punching me in the back of the head and kicking me while I was down. Then running off for a couple days. At this point, the fact he was still living in our house is absurd. He's bringing terrible people around my baby siblings, using drugs, being violent. A good mother would not allow this, and I've grown resentful of my father never stepping in. Though my father died last year tragically. The day after, my brother stole more money from our grandparents. They won't tell me how much. Now, presently, he's out on bail and will be spending several years in jail soon enough. This part is why I'm telling the story. He got some really disgusting black girl pregnant. Her family being some of the most deplorable people I've ever seen. My brother decided he needed to sell drugs to support his baby. I found out all this in one sitting and lost my mind upon hearing it. I told my mother to kick him out or I was going to do it myself. The next day, after she finally did tell him to get out, he got really drunk and high. He assaulted his pregnant girlfriend's mom and then started trashing our living room. I realized what was happening and I ran out to stop it. I told him to stop and leave, but he attacked me. I fought back and put him down, eventually getting him into a chokehold. Thankfully, someone had called the police and they arrived soon after. I let him go and they took over. He then attacked the police and went to jail. I had convinced my mother to not bail him out, but didn't count on my grandma stepping in. I spent probably 2 hours on the phone trying to convince her that bailing him out was not a good idea, but she made it out like I was being irrational and selfish. What? Somebody who... Okay, you put it in a checklist for her. How is it irrational and selfish? He's a danger to everyone. Not just you. He steals money. He's violent. He trashes your things. He attacked he attacked the mother of his child. He's a danger to more than just you, so how could that possibly be selfish? He's out now. Recently, my mother attended an ultrasound with him and his girlfriend. They were both high. My mother told me this as if it was innocuous gossip. I have been so disheartened by these experiences and have a really hard time dealing with this stuff. I turned to many different things online and elsewhere to find solace from my family. Only recently have I started turning to God. I wish I would have had this when I was younger. I wish my mother had taken us to church. Maybe things would be different. All I know for certain is that you can't put your faith in people. I want to thank UCF. I started watching these videos as an edgy atheist alt-writer, but you showed me things that led me to God and away from the filth. We need more people like you. Thank you. I read a lot of stories on this show from legitimate publications by employed journalists. And we all know how horrifying they are, what they reveal about the state of the common man. And I'm not desensitized to it. I hate hearing stories about treachery. I hate hearing stories about depravity and the treachery that often results from depravity. It never fails to sting. And I've received so many stories from people like you, which describe horrible family situations. How do things get this bad? I will never know. I hear from so many people like you who come from derelict families, and I wonder how people like you come out unscathed from all of it. Because I don't have any first-hand experience with something like this. I don't. And you are not alone. If you've listened to this show over the years, you'll come to find that, yeah, there are a lot of people out there who open up in the comment section here and tell me what their families are really like. And these are the stories that don't make front page news. No journalist cares about it, but I care. I think people need to know about this. These stories are just as important as what makes the websites. People need to step outside of their meta-political circle jerks, their bubble, their cocoon of funny memes. They need to stick their heads out. Take a look around. See what's really out there. See what people are really like. They don't want to live the truth, which is understandable. Because somebody who lives a truth like yours, it's very difficult. I wouldn't wish that upon people. And it grieves me that you do have to live this kind of life in this kind of family situation. But they don't even want to know about it. They don't want the ugly truth. They don't want to think about problems that politics and memes can't solve. Problems that people like you face on a daily basis. They ignore the cries of their fellow man and ignore the only antidote for what ails us. They make pathetic gods out of themselves, not realizing that only the Lord can fix it. Be thankful that you have the wisdom that others so desperately need. You are in my prayers, friend. You and your family. Hey CF, much like Death Wish, Hellscaper's common, I'm also back from school again. After some thinking and soul-searching, I decided that I'm going to be changing my major from clinical psychology to computer science. The primary reason is being that clinical psychology requires a minor in sociology, which, as you're probably aware, is where a lot of the bullshit you dig through comes from. 5 weeks into a sociology class and I can hardly fucking take it anymore. That's exactly the same kind of nonsense you encounter in your Tumblristas videos and Vine marathons. White privilege, sexism everywhere, love and acceptance towards everything no matter how vile it is. Love is Neville Wong, after all. Also, I know it's only a matter of time before that garbage leaks into psychology since the two fields are so closely related. It's already starting to. I went in expecting to learn about human cognition and how the brain works, why we do what we do, etc., and what I'm getting is endless lectures on inequality and privilege. Yeah, nobody actually learns anything in school anymore. They don't equip you with skills you need to make your way through the world. After all, they live in a world of academia, which is so far removed from the real world, and they live in this bubble. It's a crazy place to be. It's not a healthy place to be, but this is where they've made their life. This is where they've made their careers. They, like so many other groups of people, don't know how people actually are, how people actually behave out there in their ambient states. They don't. So my questions are, 1, why do the other people in these classes eat that shit up? Nobody ever raises any contrasting opinions. They all seem to be in great support of it. And 2, do you think it will ever stop? Thanks for doing what you do, or for what you do, rather. And I'm looking forward to the next video. God bless. God bless you as well. You got a reply to this. It says, as a part of a double major, try not to get into policing. One of my majors was criminology, the study of why people commit crime. I was much more lukewarm to all of that back then, and even still, I wanted to throw my head through a wall. Sociology is absolute nonsense. I stopped going to most of my classes and stopped doing readings by my final year, but by that point, I had already figured out the blame Whitey formula, so the tests were a breeze. Yeah, you can take the shortcut. Unfortunately, you still need to hit the word limit in a lot of cases, but yeah. That's it. That's it. Gay people can do nothing wrong. Colored people can do nothing wrong. Women are oppressed. And on it goes. Look, the people eat that shit up, as you say. You know, whatever propaganda it is being taught in the classes they take, they eat it up because they think that's what's sophisticated. Look, I'm in college. I'm sophisticated. Whatever is being taught to me right now, that's sophisticated. They're not concerned with the truth. They want to meet an ideal. They want to reach that ideal, and the truth is no way to get to that ideal. So they use their 105 Ubermensch IQs to rationalize what they're being taught as true, and because it's, it'll make me sophisticated. That's their thought process. It'll make me fancy. It'll give me a nice fancy credential that I can bring up at all the cocktail parties. This is their line of reasoning. That's why they eat it up. And until we end our devotion to what's sophisticated, what's proper, what makes you cool, what makes you acceptable, it will never, ever, ever stop. We could cut off the source of it if we as a culture decided to stop sending our kids to college. Instead, actually teaching them skills ourselves that will serve them well in their life. No, we won't do it. We're like, nah, I don't want to teach my kid anything because people now, they don't have any actual skills themselves that they can convey to their children. So they send them off to school. That's the middle class standard operating procedure. And it won't stop. It won't stop because, all these middle class people are like, oh, it's such a great time in college, man. I want to get my kid to have that same experience, not realizing all the horrendous shit they did in college that their children will most likely do themselves. And they think it's a good thing. They think it's a great thing that'll lead to all sorts of great personal growth, or however they rationalize it. Until the middle asses stop giving money to academia, the education industrial complex, will continue on unmolested, unquestioned, and we will all suffer because of it. Hey, Common Filth, I'm a recent viewer to your channel, but from what I have seen so far, it's great. Well, welcome aboard, and thank you for the support. I'm glad you've enjoyed these presentations thus far. I came to your show via Religiously Intolerant. It's a based Facebook page of about 3,000 traditionalist Christians, all of which share similar views about modern society to you and many of your viewers. Your videos have really helped me put my sodomite past behind me. This February, I went from a liberal SJW atheist to a faithful and devout Orthodox Christian, but my liberal views still held on to me. Your videos have really highlighted the problems of society in a way I've never seen before, and you red-pilled me on it. Well, we don't like the pill terminology here. It's one thing I just, among many things, but yeah, I don't like, boo pill, butt pill, ba pill, bee pill, do pill, da pill. I don't like that. So far in my few months as an Orthodox Christian, I brought 8 people to the church, and I'd like to extend that invitation to you and your viewers. And before Orthodox shill meme, I often see on your radio show people complaining about the lack of traditionalist churches in their area, and this is just a logical conclusion of sola scriptura. Sadly, after the Reformation, Protestants ditched almost all Christian tradition, forgetting that it's equal to Scripture. They are both the 2 pillars of the church. I think many of your viewers and yourself would be happy in an Orthodox parish. You have no idea how refreshing it is to speak to a member of any of the parish about the decline of society and Christianity in the West. I made several friends there, all of whom are of the same mind about leftism and sodomy. Obviously, Orthodoxy isn't for everyone, but for people looking for a parish that matches their views on an Orthodox one is your safe bet. Thanks for the work, Common Filth. Keep fighting the good fight. Well, what do they say in Eastern Europe? Orthodoxy or death? Yeah, I like a lot of Orthodox Christians. I think they do some good stuff. And you know what? I'm not one to engage in denomination bashing here, church bashing, sect bashing. The only Christian I bash here is Bergoglio, and he needs it. He needs to be attacked incessantly. And it's interesting, even in the Catholic Church, I listen to a lot of Catholic lectures on YouTube. I subscribe to a channel that uploads them all the time, and I listen to them, and they're great. And they don't compromise. They know it's evil. They're not like, well, there are bigger problems, and we shouldn't focus. No, none of that. All these meta-political dorks are like ballerinas, because they make one friend who kind of agrees with them politically, and they're like, well, we don't want to offend them. We don't want to alienate them. We need to really attract these people to our movement. That's what they think. They get one friend, they're like, oh, well, I guess we better compromise now. Unfortunately, in the church, you get a lot of that mentality as well. But at the same time, it's only from the church. It's only from Christians who give you the opposite of that. They're the only ones who understand that truth is not contingent upon what is politically expedient. Next, Office Cicer's log. Cicero revolt against the eternally transitioning natural aristocrat planetary government. Come date, Transtember 21st, 2487. My biological men have fought valiantly against the 2nd, 29th, 98th, and 43rd masculine transitioned armies. Given that our sabotage operations against their shipments of Formula T cut the strength of almost a quarter of their regiments. Captured shipments were contained and destroyed, as our armies maintained full strength for days purely on the Holy Communion. Ever since the natural birth of the man only ever known as Commandant Filth, the ever-growing cis revolt against the rule of the artificial aristocracy has struggled less and prospered more. The almost industrial rate at which couples are marrying and giving children unto God, and the revolution for the last 130 years inside held territory has increased our population and available manpower by at least 5-fold. The complete capture, cleansing, and reconstruction of Mars and Venus as industrial centers and symbols of the long-hated binary has smashed enemy morale. Terran insertion points will include the center of their Anglo culture, London, and Southern California, the 2 primary locations of their artificial womb facilities, where they produce their soulless, demonesque progeny. The aristocracy will collapse in but 2 decades' time if the attacks and landings are successful. The people that live within the aristocracy, with every single individual having their place in the hierarchy of false equality, wear diseases like a tattoo, as they have for centuries before. They have engineered themselves to be resistant to the fatal aspects of these illnesses. The more prominent aristocrats engineer their own custom bugs, sometimes even succumbing to them. Those people receive funerals with the highest honors until the last century. The aristocracy almost never received worldly death. They love their near immortality being statues to another death, a death suffered long ago. They should consider us doing them a favor. Since the late 21st century, before the dark times, Mars and Venus have been livable. The two planets have more than enough room to currently support us. In my opinion, the aristocracy's last holding should face fire and brimstone, as the Lord did with Sodom. I just pray that High Command does not turn to salt afterwards. End log. Well, you have talent. You have a great talent for the written word. You could write novels. You should develop that part of your mind, and yeah, you should make something out of that. And then you continue. Inspired after listening to that outright absurd dystopian fiction segment from the Best of 2015, Common Filth Radio, the Best of 2015. And for those of you who don't know, looking forward to the Best of 2016. Would you have turned into a brand new clone if you kept up with your musical skills? Yeah, that's the thing I posted I posted a brand new music video on Twitter, so that's like the thing that people associate with me now. No, because I wasn't really into them. Like, I knew of them and I liked a couple of their songs, but I didn't listen to them a lot when I was still playing music. But yeah, I really enjoy brand new. Now, the people I would want to mimic are obscure bands that nobody's ever heard of, actually. I only talk about the mainstream stuff I like. Hello there, Mr. Filth. I have but a simple question for you today, sir. I would like to know what's your preferred way of watching Dragon Ball. Are you dubby or are you more of a sub guy? I'm just curious. I also don't forget, keep up the good work, and I look forward to your next Dragon Ball Super review. Dubs or subs, bro. Dubs or subs. That's a thing I found out about by osmosis. Oh man, it's like you can't wash it off of you once you know about that stuff. I was never an anime nerd. I never was. I knew very little about it. I knew that it existed. There were some movies that were in the anime style. You know, I didn't know about any of it up until I started meeting people who did. And then you start learning the nomenclature through osmosis, and you can never be washed clean of it. ACF, I was on my home sub Public Health Watch, and we had an interesting article posted. Here's the title. Public Health Watch is the only subreddit that matters. r/Public Health Watch. There's your plug, and you do great work over there. U.S. Navy to require all sailors to take transgender education in class by summer 2017. This is well documented at this point. Your particular link links to the Blaze, but this story is on a lot of websites now. The long and short is that the Navy is now allowing trannies to serve in the Navy. I want to see what you have to say about this development, but here's my take. The argument of it doesn't affect you is finally dead because it now affects literally everyone who pays taxes. Yeah, if there was no doubt about that before, it's been obliterated. Any possible doubt about that has been completely obliterated. Because I argue that it already did affect everyone who pays taxes because of how heavily it is promoted within public schools. This also means that every kind of degenerate with an identity crisis is going to flock to the Navy because good old Uncle Sam is going to pay for their journey. The VA hospitals are already overworked, and now real soldiers with real problems are going to have to stand in line behind G.I. Jane, whose dead name is G.I. Joe, because they need their horse piss injections. It's bad enough that the VA doesn't have great mental health departments, as is, so there will probably be an increased amount of suicide rates among vets, which on the upside may cause the Department of Defense to spend more money on helping soldiers with PTSD. Here's another fun glimpse to the future. Let's say that every branch of service adopts this policy. With the repeal of Don't Ask, Don't Tell, and the already higher rate of rape among male soldiers on the rise, we have trannies in the Army and Marines. How's that going to affect morale when an 18-year-old bright-eyed and bushy-tailed kid from Arkansas falls for the trap meme, and does something unspeakable to a fellow soldier, or worse, kills himself because he can't cope with it for one reason or another? How would this policy work from a logistics point of view? Housing during training is not co-ed. Training is mostly not co-ed. Where are they going to stick the trannies? Are the trannies going to get a separate pod of their own? Are we going to have more drill sergeants for them? Are those drill sergeants going to be required to be trans too? Where do you draw the line? Let's say trans women are allowed to serve. Does the Army and Marines have to let biological women take on combat roles now because the trannies are allowed to because they were at some point a man? Wouldn't the military then have to make a distinction between biological women and trans women? Could you imagine the collective ass pain of every SJW no matter what they decided? It would be a DEFCON 1 situation in every cafe and student union room across the country. I'd say it'd be a DEFCON 0. I really hate that you're right, CF. Sometimes I earnestly wish that I hadn't found your channel. You have been predicting the future for 2 years now. If the Army does decide to implement this policy as well, it will be right up there with the death of my grandparents as one of my darkest, most depressing days, having been a soldier myself. Your comment here encapsulates how infuriating the present state of the internet right wing is when they say, there are bigger issues, you know. When this has been promoted for the past 6 years by the Obama administration. And before he was inaugurated, I barely saw any of this. I barely saw any of this queer propaganda in the public. Now I'm seeing high school floats that they make for homecoming that feature prominently rainbow flags. And the people who should care but don't, they just shrug, or they turn a blind eye to it, or they have no idea how bad it really is. And I completely understand why you say what you say at the end there. That sometimes you wish you hadn't found my channel. Well, take solace or whatever you will from this. This is going to find you. If I'm telling you this information, if I'm putting it into context, or if I'm not, it's still going to find you, just like it found me. Everywhere you look, if you have a pair of eyes, if you have a pair of ears, you see it, you hear it everywhere. The reframing of evil depravity as good, as wholesome. What drew me initially to right-wing politics was the fact that a lot of them were anti-depravity. They placed a premium on human behavior and what it means, and how bad behavior is the most destructive element in any society. Now what is it? Now it's ignore the behavior. We just need to focus on white survival. When who we are in our present manifestation doesn't deserve to survive. And if we are unrepentant about our present state of being, we won't survive. And good riddance. How many young alienated white kids think that whatever they do is fine because they're white? They've had all this programming throughout their life. They have constantly hammered into their head in the classroom, in the media, that you have white privilege, you benefit from Jim Crow and slavery and segregation, which is all nonsense. So they take the opposite view. They think I haven't done anything wrong. In fact, everything I do is good, even if it's actually very destructive. Everything my ancestors did is good, even though it's very destructive. You have a lot of young, alienated white kids out there right now who have this mindset. They double down on their depravity because they are white. And I see this all the time on Twitter. People send this to me all the time. I see it on Facebook. Any form of social media you can imagine, you can see this in action. And the normies, so to speak, well, they're just as bad. In some ways, they're actually less abhorrent because they don't rationalize it through a racial lens of their depravity. They rationalize it through other means, sure. But those young whites out there who actually do have a couple of brain cells to rub together that they use to rationalize their depravity through a racial lens, that makes it worse because they actually have a history to learn from and they refuse to learn from it. People like Grinder Greg rationalize it because, pagans did it. Where the hell are the pagans now? What have they done? Unbelievable. What I'm trying to say with this tangent here is that this will continue on unabated if we don't check ourselves. And so it goes. We haven't checked ourselves. We haven't taken moral inventory of ourselves, and will we ever? Look, I'd love to be surprised, but I'm reading the tea leaves. I'm looking at the trends. It's just not happening. It's not happening. This is a fact. Doesn't matter how it makes you feel. This is a fact. And so it will remain. Shalom, Rabbi Filthowitz. I have two things, a small story and a question. Last weekend, I was invited to a small housewarming party for a couple I respected. The woman of the two was even nice enough to make me a cake for my birthday last month, despite not knowing me very well at the time. The condo was small, but in a very nice neighborhood. They were high school sweethearts and had been married for 3 years. As the night went on, the man started down a strange conversation path. He told me that he gets off on watching other people have sex with his wife. There was not even a lead into this topic, no build-up. It was like a degenerate bus made of words crashing into me. I lost respect for him immediately, of course, and left the conversation. I should have left the party, but I was too drunk to drive at this point. I ended up in a conversation with his wife. She was one of those live my life, never children types, so I see where this cuck shit fits in, I suppose. That wasn't near everything people I learned about the other guests that night, but I'll spare you. It was like one of those AFK episodes was happening in front of me. At the risk of sounding dramatic, the little apartment they moved into stopped being a home in my mind and seemed almost like a coffin. That's perfect. It is. It's a tomb. Have you ever had an experience like that, where people you thought were respectable hit you with something like that? No, never to that extent. So, I apologize that this is a pretty new, relatively new thing that you're dealing with here. And the question, what do you think about the internet as a means to spread messages around? I think it's a good thing, mostly as I enjoy what people like you have to say, and the internet provides me with a link to your opinion. But at the same time, it seems that there are too many people talking and not enough listening. Maybe the advantage of speaking in public is that it intimidates at least a percentage of people away and frees up space for bolder individuals. What do you think? Anyway, thanks for the time. God bless. Shall we turn to scripture for a moment to give this context from Deuteronomy chapter 28, verse 30. Thou shalt betroth the wife, and another man shall lie with her. Thou shalt build a house, and thou shalt not dwell therein. Thou shalt plant a vineyard, and shalt not gather the grapes thereof. So these acquaintances of yours, the man in particular, is being punished by God here for his spinelessness, for his rebellion against his law. He is punished, and he is unrepentant, so he rationalizes his punishment as pleasurable. That's what you're dealing with here. Which reminds me, here's Deuteronomy 28:32. Thy sons and thy daughters shall be given unto another people, and thine eyes shall look and fail with longing for them all the day long, and there shall be no might in thine hand. In other words, God sent the refugees, God sent the immigrants as punishment for your rebellion, for your disobedience. And you know what the rules are? Europeans, white people, they know what the rules are, and they say, stupid God, he failed us. Look, you know the rules, you know what's going to happen. So it's on you. God is simply there to facilitate what is just. You knew the rules, you knew the boundaries, you crossed them, and here's what's happening. So, at the end of the day, it's not God that screwed you. You screwed you. That's out of the way. I've said what I've had to say on that subject. I will now repeat the question to remind everybody what it was. What do you think about the internet as a means to spread messages around? I think it's a good thing mostly, and as I enjoy what people like you have to say, and the internet provides me with a link to your opinion. But at the same time, it seems that there are too many people talking and not enough listening. Yeah, too many people talking and not enough listening. And I'm going to get to that. That's an important part. Maybe the advantage of speaking in public is that it intimidates at least a percentage of people away and frees up space for bolder individuals. What do you think? The problem with the internet is that it gives the perception even more so that we're all equal, that all our voices are valid, and that's just simply not the case. You wouldn't believe the amount of inane crap I get in my comments that amounts to nothing more than nuh-uh. Social media creates an echo chamber. People develop their own persona and they have their own little crowd and they pander to that. And they think like, oh, I'm important because I have orbiters. And this type represents the worst of it. There are a lot of people out there who are, remain in relative obscurity, yet they view themselves as being equal on your level, on my level, on anybody's level. They think, oh, I could type a comment. Therefore, I'm more important. I'm just as important. You don't deserve it. It's like the internet has created a generation of very, very, very envious people, very covetous people, and it's sick. It's not like I'm here bragging about how great life is because I have an audience. If you have an audience, your life isn't going to change. You're not going to be any better of a person because of it. In fact, it's often an albatross for some people. Come Juan Leibowitz. Hey, come on, Leibowitz. Not a CFR comment, but regarding CF Extra 34. Love the show, man. Non-con means non-consent. I can only assume dub-con means dubious consent in this context. Understandable and proud that you don't understand what those mean. God bless. Oh, is that what it means? God, again, consent and freedom. Pagan gods. Horrible gods. And look what it turns into. You think you consent to something and that makes everything okay. Look, I don't care who's consenting. If you're watching your wife get fucked by some black dude, by an aspiring rapper, if you're watching your wife get fucked by an aspiring rapper, I don't care how much consent is taking place, your wife's still getting fucked by an aspiring rapper. You do some sick shit that somebody encounters, and they're in their mind what's happening. Like in that visceral heat of the moment situation, if they encounter something disgusting, if they encounter something abominable, they're not thinking, oh, well, are they consenting? That's not where their mind goes first. And this is the problem. We think all the wrong thoughts when we are removed from the heat of the moment, when we are removed from the visceral nature of the situation. See, once we're away from that, when we could think about it, when we have the opportunity to rationalize, once we're removed from the situation, we can pay tribute to ideology. That's a very dangerous thing. We can pay tribute to all of our teachings, all of our worldly learned things. We can pay tribute to it so that we may appear to be good, sophisticated people in the eyes of our peers. Fuck your peers! I think bad thoughts. Hey, CF, I don't really have a topic or question in particular. I do want to ask, since you are a fan of Nobody TM, how are you aware of someone called Randy Prozac and or the website Sentimental Corp? He has techniques very similar to how Nobody creates his videos and is close at least in some way or another. With the creator of Nobody TM, as many of Randy's work ends up in Nobody TM's videos and vice versa. However, Randy's tone and atmosphere in his videos are far more sinister, darker in their context. I'll say beware if you do check his page, as there is some not nice stuff in his videos, but very mean and hurtful words / imagery that made me think outside my bubble wrap, and I don't like that, to be honest. But yeah, here's a link to check out in your own time, bruv, sentimentalcorp.org. Yeah, I will check that out. I've heard the name, but I might have seen the video, but I haven't connected a name to material. Stay woke, my beautiful queen African sister. Don't let them dumb Neanderthals get you down. Show them how dangerous you are with them triple IQ educations, fam balam. Viva la Kangza. There's apparently no affiliation according to the reply you received. I've actually asked nobody about this on IRC. Apparently there's no affiliation. They've never collaborated. Sentimental Corp was just one of Nobody's influences, so he had a link to the website on one of his pages at a time. But yeah, spooky stuff worth commenting on. It's kind of more Illuminati related, IMO. Just thought I'd mention. Stay woke, everyone. Stay woke, as only educated black women can be, like myself. CF, what do you think of rap culture? Do you think it is responsible for causing such brutal crime statistics in black communities? If so, then who's to blame? Also, quick question, when are the end times? Last radio episode, you'd say we'd know. A loose estimate would work as an answer. Look, there's no time or place or date I could put to it because I think that's really irresponsible and it cheapens scripture. As people are like, God says it'll happen on this date. No, you said that, not God. You nut. So that's why I don't think we're living in the end times. I think if it were happening, it'd be very explicit. We'd know. There would be no ambiguity about it. Whereas with now, there is some ambiguity about it. So it's just not happening. And a lot of people say like, oh, you just LARP about the end of civilization. What? Am I in like my bug out bunker? Am I a survivalist, you dumb fuck? Things are bad. You just don't like how I'm exposing the pretty lies for what they are. The conduct of the average person has never been worse in modern times. And it just keeps getting worse. And a lot of people don't want to realize that. They don't want to confront that fact, but it is true. It is true. And there's no cosplaying or LARPing or whatever dumb term that some retard right-winger invented. Contrary to what Ron Paul says, it's not happening. It's not happening. Blaming rap culture, hip-hop, on high crime in the black community is stupid because they're mostly making music about the life they live or the life they want to live, if it isn't true already. So it's the behavior that comes first. The art is a reflection of that behavior. So to blame it for causing the high crime among blacks is stupid. As terrible and destructive as what a lot of this rap music promotes and portrays, it's honest. For the most part, it is honest, which is far more than you can say about other forms of art. Like Macklemore and his Same Love bullshit. And whatever else sort of pro-sodomite agitprop exists out there. Hey, Jose Lieberman Garcia. I've recently been getting pretty triggered by your anti-white bashing and would like to say a few things about white nationalism, alt-right, whatever. Outside of the anime avatar Neats and a few self-appointed alt-right spokesmen, no one in the white nationalist movement supports faggotry, and the vast majority support Putin and his strengthening of religious influence in Russia and suppression of degeneracy, while Common Filth Extra episode 35 directly contradicts this. I have the evidence. It seems that the present manifestation of the internet right-wing metapolitical movements you have, it seems like they were too big of too much of a collection of pussies to make it on Stormfront. Because I saw a Stormfront poll once. Kind of feel bad for calling them a honeypot now, but you can never be too sure about these things. But yeah, they said that most of them, the vast majority of them, said that homosexuality is absolutely unacceptable in white nationalist movements. So credit to them. Credit to them for understanding that there are enemies within and they are more dangerous than the enemies that are beyond the jurisdiction of the group. In other words, the present manifestation of the right wing are a bunch of lefties who get jumpy around black people. They're stuff white people like types who don't like black people but love to have the token deviant friend. It's funny, the righties like to, the right wing likes to make fun of lefties for having token minority friends. Yet they say nothing about their token deviant sodomite friends because the right wing has them too now. It's changed. That's what it is at this point. All right. It's not like this is a fixed thing. Words change over time. Terms change over time. Classifications, categories change over time. And this is what it's turned into. Racist stuff, white people like types. White people who are afraid of black people. Find out more on Common Filth Extra 35. It is free. Continuing. Majority support Putin and his strengthening of religious influence in Russia and suppression of degeneracy. We are obviously fans of Hitler too, who puts homos in work camps and incentivized monogamy in big families as the bedrock of society. So the contention that all or even a majority of us would rather an intersex, demi-spirit dog-fucking white over a devout Ugandan Christian is just false. We just don't want either of them under any circumstances in our hypothetical society. Well, I wish there were more of you. You have standards, unlike some other people who were too much of a pussy to post on Stormfront. You have standards, you have boundaries, and I respect that. Also trying to mostly expose the correct and correct the rampant degeneracy in white Western societies, while these same societies are actively pushing for their demographic suicide, is like choosing to operate on a tumor instead of focusing on the fact that the patient is hemorrhaging to death. Both are important, but it doesn't matter whether you remove the tumor or not if the patient is dead. Well, yeah, the patient is already dead, I think. I mean, the body, you just look at living people and you think they're still alive, but they're not. If what they support, if what they promote is deviant, anti-life, anti-family, they're already dead. If they have no correct sense of what is right and what is wrong, they are already dead. No point in keeping the body alive if the brain is dead, if the soul is dead in this case. Good day, Mr. Filth. Your frequent attacks against the Anglo hurt. Well, it's not just the Anglo. You just hear those words louder than most because they apply more closely to you. So it's not personal, all right? It's not. There's nobody I have in mind. I've known a lot of good British people, devout people who made their way to America. I had a lot of good conversations with them through the internet. So it's not personal at all. But again, we can't fixate on exceptions. It's very dangerous to do. It's a flaw in our psyche. So with that out of the way, they hurt because they're true, which is why I watch the show. Anyway, I just wanted to preface my admonishment with that. Lately, the last episode, for example, you've been making statements in the vein of it would have been better if England never converted because we've ruined Christianity. Well, here's the thing. It's not a conversion then. If you follow God's word, God's law, then you're converted. No, what I said was introduce it. Introduce it. You can introduce these ideas to a society. You can introduce these concepts to a society, but do they really convert? Not really if they're changing it for their own purpose. Just like that woman did when she found out that her husband is sodomizing men or getting sodomized. She's like, I'm going to use this to my advantage. And that sums it up. So it's not a conversion. It's a subversion. And I'm also looking at what comes out of English-speaking countries. These megachurch types. They're not, if you're attracting that many people, you're not making a difference. You're not different at all. You're just giving them what they already know. You're just giving them a social environment to continue on with whatever nonsense they believe. And you're profiting from it. That's what the megachurch is. And that's an American thing. But what did America come from? What do we mostly speak here in America? English, an Anglo language. So that also is what I have in mind when I'm saying Anglo. Everyone associated with everybody who speaks a word of English. Anybody who's spoken a word of English for more than one generation. That's what I'm talking about. I understand that you're growing in passion, but it's not for you to question God. He converts who he wills, and as a Christian, it is not for us to say, God, you shouldn't have saved those people. Look, if they're saved, they're honest. They know the score if they are truly saved. But if they continue on, as they always have, using Christianity as a fashion accessory, then it's better off that they don't have it for everyone who actually takes Scripture seriously. This is what I'm saying. But I thank you for sending this because it allows me to explain myself. I know those aren't direct quotes, but they are the thrust of what you were saying when you responded to the post about the Church of England, for example. I hope you don't take this as me being butthurt because it isn't. No, it isn't at all. I pray you go on denouncing my culture's degenerate ways. Just maybe reflect a little bit before you say stuff like this insert race/culture shouldn't have had the gospel shared with them. Anyway, much respect for you and what you do. Keep up the good fight. God bless. Well, blessed are the individuals who do take it seriously, who do take Scripture seriously, who follow its lessons, who obey God's law. But cursed are the cultures who use these very important things, such as Scripture, such as salvation, such as God's law, as a business plan, as something to sell, as a fashion accessory. This is what I am saying. Anyway, much respect for you and what you do. Keep up the good fight. God bless. Did I read that already? I'll read it again because it's nice. Thank you. Thank you for sending that. I'm glad I could explain that further now, and I hope you understand a little bit more where I'm coming from. If not, just like I said, just a little bit. Ahoy, Captain Filth. I came here with a comment in mind and laughed at how appropriate the pew pew nigga is for this moment. Yeah, that's what I started off this thread with. I live in New York City, you know, the place that recently got bombed near a gay district. The city that lets you use the bathroom your gender is aligned with. The city whose mayor's daughter was prancing around the gay parade in a bra and some shorts looking like a total skank. Well, I mean, there's skank and then there's prostitute, which is what she looked like. So, skank, yes. It's like all prostitutes are skanks, but not all skanks are prostitutes, that kind of thing. The good old Big Apple itself. Anyway, I got off the train from work, and you know what's interesting? I noticed that the picture that I saw, and maybe he was in the other pictures, but the son of Bill de Blasio wasn't in those pictures, so you know, maybe he has his instincts still about him, and hopefully he turns out okay from being brought up in such a sick family. Because the daughter hasn't, obviously. The good old Big Apple itself. Anyway, I got off the train from work and was walking home when 2 blocks away, I hear a bunch of friends making some noise for whatever reason, all the while a police car starts strolling by. Let it be known that the whole parking lot smelled like weed, dude. And I assume that's why the car was getting close. And I was right, but not completely. The car turned on its megaphone and I said, and I quote, "Keep it calm, boys, relax, and don't be so loud," unquote. Emphasis on the loud since it's some type of weed, as I'm sure you know. Before strolling away, while the officers were having a chuckle in the car. If the movies are right and New York gets bombed first, I can understand why. Just another day in the country's melting pot, am I right? Anyway, that's all I wanted to say for now. Stay safe and God bless you, for your voice has done great things for me and for many people. I'm sure of it. No homo, bruv. No homo. Look, I think some people have called New York City the world's largest concentration camp. I think I saw a headline on Drudge Report that said something along those lines, and he is correct. He's right about that. And I feel bad for the decent people in New York, because I know a few, including yourself. I have listeners there, and I just hope you get out safe, and maybe you find folks or why God has not destroyed New York City yet. After all, he said to Abraham that for the sake of one, that's where it was heading. He would spare a population for the sake of one righteous individual. He would spare it. So maybe you're that. Hey, Hood Pope. I'm Hood Pope now. Oh, that's a YouTube video. I'll check that out. Do you still like Filthy Frank after Human Cake? He kisses Max and eats pubes. Well, I don't keep up with his work. All I know that he's shared my stuff before, and I'm thankful for that. That's really disturbing and disgusting. Also, there was a pride parade in Belgrade recently. The police had to lock down half of the city because of it, and instead of riding my bike 50 minutes to get from one side of the city to the other, I had to ride 90 minutes because I had to go around. There were so many cops protecting them, it's ridiculous. There's probably more cops than participants of the parade. Didn't I see something like that on Iron March recently? I think I did. I saw the picture. Good news, the parade was smaller than last year and seems to get smaller every year. That's all for this week. God bless you, fam. To be honest, shaking my head 100%. Well, it just goes to show that, you know, the powers that be are seeing decreasing returns on investment from it. They're trying to spread sodomy to the east, and it's just not working out for them, so maybe that's why it's getting smaller, and thank God it is. You gotta be thankful for something. I'm not sure if this has been asked, but what's your first name? I bet it's Raul. No, it's Shlomo. My name is Shlomo Villalobos. Hey, CF, there's a detail of early Anglo TV pause programming. This guy, Kenny Everett, was a radio host turned to TV comedy. Tributes paid to Kevin Everett on what would have been his 70th birthday. In 1985, Everett came out as gay, having struggled to accept his sexual orientation. Everett revealed that he had twice attempted to take his own life and that he could never accept the term gay. What was that? Jimmy Savile? Because there's more than just one. Yeah, Jimmy Savile, who is a beloved British personality. He's a DJ, TV host, and so on. Yeah, DJ, TV, and radio personality, dance hall manager, and he turned out to be a child rapist. And he died back in 2011. All this came out. All this information was brought to light after his death, apparently. So, yeah, just another British hero. Disturbing. No other way you could put it. God helps CF. Wait, I skipped one. Hey, CF, what do you think about Serbia and Orthodox Christianity? I make videos for Serbian people. I'll say it every time, but rest assured, I do. God help CF. Thanks for sharing my tweets, man. Even Earl of Grey shared them. Hey, we spread the love here. And I was banned from his Flexibook page for being edgy heathen 2 years ago. Anyway, this is something I noticed that a lot of people, they try out all these strange things that have nothing to do with them. They just think like, oh, it was my ancestors. And then that's the whole basis of it, not realizing if your ancestors were right or wrong. Just because you exist doesn't mean they're right, alright? Man, just... a lot of people, they experiment with all these strange ideas and ways of being. And it seems to be just a product of the times. I don't know why. I don't know why a lot of white kids are just experimenting with these odd ways of being, and then going back rather quickly from them. I know about Earl of Grey. Earl of Grey is a great guy, and I've been following his page for a real long time. But I didn't know it was 2 years. Time flies. Anyway, this will be short. 2 years. It's more than 2 years old. The page, the brand. Anyway, this will be short. Apparently, the aristocrats already held a parade here in Belgrade. Hey, that's true. I just heard about that. Just like last year, but no one noticed. Last year, since there was only 20 of them, and this year there was unplanned retaliation. So I looked into this bizarre makeshift on-the-go parade, and apparently they're saying parades have no impact here other than negative. So many of them are planning to move west. There you have it. It is all a Western attempt at subverting societies greater than their own. Is this how we beat the plague? I really want your insight on this, since this is all confusing. They just seemingly gave up. With regards, the regular Serb. Well, look, they gave up because it didn't have an impact. Nobody was influenced by it. The Serbian people have no desire for this shit. They have real problems to deal with. And it seems that we need real problems. Like I said, it's like we only tell the truth when we're in crisis situations. The Westerners in general. I think that Serbians, I don't think they have this problem because they have to deal with it. The memory of problems, even if things are good right now, I'm not quite sure of the situation in Serbia right now because, I don't keep up on it. I don't live there. So it's difficult for me to gauge. But I have people like you from there, or who pay attention to it, at least. You maintain your intestinal fortitude against all things depraved, deviant, destructive. Don't ever forget it. Don't ever forget the hard times. Don't ever give yourself fake problems. Don't ever give yourself problems that can be rationalized as not problems, like we do here in the West. We think, oh, homos and trannies aren't a problem, nihilism is. I still can't get over how stupid that is. And how emblematic that is of our mindset. You're telling me that people who contribute the most, who live the most nihilistic lives, don't contribute to nihilism and despair? Fuck you. But the common people in Serbia, they stay strong against it. They don't capitulate to this depravity. They don't want it. It's not in their heart to want it. And you need to stay that way. If you stay that way, there might be hope yet for Serbia. P.S. Shout out to my brothers from the other mothers on Discord. My monitor died, so I can't hop on. We'll be there soon. Well, there you have it, everybody. Shalom, Senor Filth. I'm not necessarily looking for advice, but I want to know where it is I'm standing. Since discovering your show, I've been finding myself much more vocal about my beliefs as well as the depravity I encounter on a consistent basis. I have a couple of friends who watch your show, and they agree with me. After listening to your most recent episode of Common Filth Radio, I made a post on my own Facebook account about the risks of oral sex. I had a tirade of people commenting on this, and you're right. When you say that when you get in the way of people's cum, they get defensive. Is this something you struggle with in your everyday life, or are you mostly subdued about your views when there's a public eye on you? Not in reference to the show, obviously. Well, I don't put myself in situations where it'll come up because it won't end well. And it's like anybody who would be like that, I purge from my life. Anybody who gets all crazy about their jizz, about their cum, about their tingles, anybody who gets crazy about that, I have nothing to do with. We in the West conflate sexual inhibition with freedom. It is the pinnacle of freedom, which is why the sodomite holds such high esteem in our societies. You don't want that in your life. It'll only lead to unhappiness. It's a terrible way of being. And I've had comments on the show last episode getting all angry about that. Like, this, if you do this enough, it'll give you cancer. Like, oh my God, how can you say that? It's disturbing. So, it's just, you can't address a fool by his folly, and that's the problem. You have too many fools out there who are able to attack you all at once. And it's impossible to defend yourself from every direction when they're all like, how could you believe that? How could you believe that? That's what it sounds like. Constant. Just a constant cacophony of foolishness. And fools have strength in numbers. So, you get the truth in where you can get it. And you do it by being offensive rather than defensive. Casual belligerence. Make it your lifeblood that you are against this depravity. Make it a part of your DNA. Don't give any second thought to what other people think about it. Be belligerent. And be unaware of it. Do it out of passion. Make it so. Because if you say it, if you have conviction within this belief, then there's nothing that anybody can say against you. People will be taken aback at how blunt you are regarding this subject, and they won't know how to deal with it. Shalom, Shaniqua Filth. I've been watching Common Filth Radio for a good 20 episodes or so now, and it's one of the few pieces of media that I look forward to on a regular basis. Thank you. Good way to start the week, to say the least. In the most recent episode, you talked about how you didn't enjoy reading too much until you were out of high school, where you were free to read the things that could actually hold your interest. It just so happens that I'm a high schooler and can attest to the fact that our assigned reading isn't exactly intriguing. Not many of my classmates even read the entire book we were made to read over the summer. I bring up my class experience because just a day after listening to that episode of CFR, we began reading and discussing an essay by a woman named Francine Prose. It resonated with me personally and perfectly describes my situation, or at least with English teaching. I'll link it here, but it is a bit of a read. Basically, Prose says the current method of English teaching is ineffective and doesn't promote an interest in the proper analysis of text and enjoyment of reading. Students asked her how they feel about text instead of discussing what the author is saying and how they're getting the point across. As a blankety blank, I feel a bloopity bloop. Yeah, exactly. Another point I thought was particularly articulate is that we're often given texts that teach values but are really only for lazy teachers to direct classes easier. And these books are often of little actual value other than being written by a gay black man. And we all know how much we whiteys love our homos. Thankfully, though, my teacher isn't positive enough to explicitly promote sodomy and reach for abortion metaphors like you said on Twitter. Whether or not you read the full article, would you agree something similar to this was the reason you couldn't enjoy books until you're free from that sort of teaching? Well, even if I was in that sort of teaching, I still had no interest in the subject matter. It wasn't relevant to me. Of course that homos and abortions would be relevant to teachers. Teachers are terrible. Most teachers are terrible people. So of course they like to teach on books that have sodomy and abortion symbolism because that's who they are. What they consume reflects who they are. Or did something else prevent you from it? Yeah, it's just it was completely irrelevant subject matter to me. It had no bearing on my life. It reflected my life in no meaningful way. It reflected my interests in no meaningful way. So that's it. And they didn't make me care about it. They're just like, oh, here's this book. Isn't it great? And it's like, no, screw you. I don't care. I'm notorious for my awful memory, so hopefully you didn't already answer this question. but it'll be interesting to hear your response nonetheless. Well, it's not something I've talked about before up until that point, reading. You know, once I figured out that there are books written about things that I talk about in depth, I was like, wow, cool. Books. Books about how atheism is stupid? Yeah, great. Arguments books about arguments against atheism? Cool. And academics like to say, well, that's biased. Well, it's well-argued bias. It's well-researched bias. For example. So, of course, I wouldn't teach it. That's not who they are. So, yeah, if you want to go to school to read books, don't do that. Don't. It'll just kill your enjoyment. So, another news your show has played no small part in my recent embracing of Christianity. Just a few months ago, I was an atheist with an awful mindset. Almost fell into the pit of white nationalism before I saw the dysfunction my race promotes. My faith is not in man but Christ, and I have you to thank for leading me down that path. Thanks and God bless, CF. Well, God bless you as well, and I'm glad I could help you out. Look, I'm uncomfortable receiving the credit for it, but, you know, it's like if that's what got you on the correct path, then I can't argue with that. You know, just remember what's really important. There's a very bleak picture being painted about Christianity right now because it's toothless. It's ineffective. It offers no difference from anything else. So I like Pastor James David Manning so much. He tells it like it is. He pulls no punches. He doesn't sugarcoat it. He doesn't go on about pretty lies. He speaks the truth. He's what Christians should be. Maybe he represents what Christians used to be. And you know what? We need more like that. We should strive to tell the truth about what the world really is, how it really is, what it's really like out there. And if we do that, more people will see the light. But unfortunately, nobody wants to show them. Very few, anyway. But I'm glad I could help you there. Just remember what's important. Wagwan CF, recent listener here. The show has resonated with me and has reminded me a lot of instances of bullshit that I once brushed off as nothing. For example, I had a teacher back in high school who slowly revealed detail by detail about his marriage. First, we learned he was divorced. The next we learn is that he is the one who lives with his son. What? Okay. And eventually we learned that his wife fucking left him for another woman and he was perfectly fine with that. Obviously that's bullshit, but I can't help but feel bad for the guy. And in case you're curious, yes, he was the stereotypical looking white. So he's white. Great. More bleak pictures painted of the race. The once proud race of the once successful race. No real questions, just felt I should share that story since it was constantly on my mind when listening. Good luck on the fight against the baddie boys and keep doing your show. Yes, I will. I'll keep trying, always. But, yeah. I mean, you'd have to be a fool not to see it in your daily life and in people whose paths you cross. Your path crosses theirs, and their path is not a good one. Not a good one at all. And there you have it. So he rationalizes his wife's treachery. Oh, that's fine. You can pay tribute to the ideology of it. Well, she's just being herself. Herself might be terrible, but she's being herself. He's able to rationalize it because he's removed from the trauma. That's all an IQ buys you these days is rationalization points. Saludos, Mr. Filth. What are your thoughts about salvation through good works and faith versus faith alone? I've been listening to Toby Logsden's podcast on the Gospel of John, and he made the case that good works are evidence of being saved, not a requirement for it. Something about that rings true to me, even though I had never considered that side of the argument before. The word we need to use is passion. If works are informed by faith, that's passion. That's just something you do without really thinking about that. That's the Spirit working through you. And that's what we need to start saying. It's passion. And you need to have your heart changed in order to have the passion to do good works. And it's not a passion by first doing good works with nothing behind it. Alright, you could say an empty I love you, but what does it mean? You know, if you don't really mean it, it's fake. If there's no true intent behind it, it's fake. That's just one example. So if you give money to charity with no real drive behind it, no passion behind it, what does it mean? It means very little. The passion to do right can only come from a faithful heart. And that's my take on it. Inshallah, Imam Filth. Well, that's heretical. I wanted to ask some questions about two things. First, on modern medicine. What do you think about it? I know things like HIV medication and such are entirely bad because it keeps paws churning in our gears. But what about chemo and related treatments? I would only assume you support them because of normal reasons, but I'm not entirely sure your reasoning on the subject. The second is regarding evolution, with it simply being, do you think it exists or not? I'm more conflicted about this subject, especially with a certain comic giving a reasonable argument. But a little input would be great, thank you. Oh, it's a chick tract comic. That's cool. Look, I don't place any stock in it. It's stupid. Like I was talking about on the guest appearance I did. It doesn't matter whether the Earth is 6,000 years old or however old it is. True is true. Doesn't matter if a bird suddenly got a different beak over a couple of generations. Doesn't matter. The truth is still the truth. A minor change in a species of birds does not change the nature of morality, does not change the nature of right and wrong. That is my take on the subject. And as for chemo and related treatments, it's not something I think about. It's not the reason why we talk about AIDS and HIV in relation to homosexuality is it's very unique to them. That's the only reason why we talk about it. I mean, if AIDS didn't exist, it would still be an abhorrent behavior. All right, it just has the side effect of causing strain on medical resources. Next. Greeting common filth and moi. I hope all this pop culture shit doesn't get too old. Have you ever read the Stephen Pressfield? He wrote some gay golf books, I guess, but got famous, but he does historical fiction. We was Helens and shit. Sans the man boy love. Anyway, there's a part of Tides of War that made me think of you. Here, I don't know how to pronounce these things, talks the Spartans into helping him. The worst enemies of Athens are not those who, like you, have only harmed her in war, but those who have forced her friends to turn against her. The Athens I love is not the only one which is wronging me now. That country that I am attacking does not seem to be mine any longer. It is rather that I am trying to recover a country that has ceased to be mine. And the man who really loves his country is not the one who refuses to attack it when he has been unjustly driven from it, but the man whose desire for it is so strong that he will shrink from nothing in his efforts to get back there again. It doesn't work out because he was a degenerate, but I like the speech's sentiment all the same. Hey, this is correct. It's the enemy within. That's always the enemy within. It's people who look like you and you think they think like you and act like you too, but they don't. You just fool yourself into thinking that because they look like you. They speak the same language as you, and that's enough to be fooled. That's enough to be tricked, unfortunately. So I'm glad there are people out there who feel the same way, who view it the same way, because it's true. How do you feel about hookup apps like Tinder? Representative of where we are in our moral trajectory? Doesn't matter how I feel about it, that's the fact. I think they're contributing to great evil. That's it. How could you view it as anything but? Oh, right. Come, dude. But, dude, it makes me feel good. That's what they think. Gia es muere dich halachar kuchi anta. Just asking for your opinion on a pretty big blow up from the shambolic scene that is the internet right wing. Apologies if you don't like talking about this or the details of it, rustle your jimmies, but I thought it made for some enlightening evidence on your modern thesis of the blah. But I thought it made for some enlightening evidence of your thesis on modern day Western culture, as well as great surrealist entertainment. Namely, Sargon of Akkad's attempt to smoke out the alt-right with gay pornography of all things. Long story shortish, some basement-dwelling pornography-addicted sociopath, alt-right is for short, tweeted a Photoshop picture of noted biblical scholar and Christian martyr Michael Brown with Sargon's young son on it. Because Sargon's grandmother was supposedly Caribbean, and Sargon thus a quarter black quadroon, though more likely at most 1/8 due to high amount of race mixing that Anglos willingly engaged in. Somewhat understandably, Sargon was apparently enraged by this racial abuse and implied desire to see his son dead, but what he did next was quite bizarre. He took to posting gay porn involving black men to his Twitter, spamming it in reply to anyone who responded negatively, alt-right or not. He then took to cheering the immediate drop in followers unsubscribing from him as a victory, despite most of them being normies who did not want not safe for work butt stuff at work or at all. Then began some ad hominem appearance-based taunts against some weird childish-looking alt-righter in a Make America Great Again hat. A lot of them quite funnily against effeminacy and gay face. Though apparently he might have been attacking the appearance of an unrelated person who was actually Asian and was wearing a CIA meme costume in one photo, unbeknownst to Sargon. Honestly, the absurdity of it all is the most astounding thing, but I kind of feel some pity for him. He's floundering the pit of internet intellectually masturbatory nihilism along with futureless youngsters who've been born in it and molded by it, and getting outplayed at their game of absurdity and despair. But then I see him retweet things about how backwards and evil Christians are for seeing abortion, literal child murder, as worse than the priestly molestation shenanigans, which no one but the natural aristocrats infecting the church defend. And I feel less sympathy for this pronoun-respecting proper Englishman, getting hoisted by the petard of godlessness as the alt-right will no doubt be someday soon. If you really wanted to trigger the vitriolic and unconstructive alt-right, the images of Africans he should have posted should not have been of African cummies at the expense of cuckold white faggots, but African Christians defending themselves from the filth Westerners export and the Muslim type they cream themselves importing. Sorry if this gets you down. It has gotten me down, but the only options are to laugh or cry. The mandatory thing is to learn from it. The kerfuffle was more interesting seeing it unfold, but for posterity, here's a subsection on Encyclopedia Dramatica about it. Trigger warning, aristocrats act on display. Hetero peasants must bow their heads to and murmur devotionals to holy cummies to ward off homophobic sentiment while entering the presence of these sacred icons. Another pessimistic addendum. Everyone in Ireland can feel the tension mounting when the agenda will launch the next campaign and the final blow to destroy Ireland materially and in terms of morals and morale. One of my countrymen on poll spoke about how in the largest university in the country had pro-abortion leaflets handed out at the Students' Union during the induction week for impressionable 18-year-old graduates of the murder machine, as someone long ago termed the gift of modernist education the eternal Anglo gave us. And even he said pro-abortion, expletive deleted, giving lectures in the classroom. Things are no better in the university that was until recently. 3 guesses as to why it was shut down. Ireland's seminary. Anti-clericalism and atheist liberal socialism rules this place, which is just as surely a murder machine for the purposeless of children of the Irish masses. There will almost certainly be a referendum on abortion here within the next year, but no, we are winning because American faggots can fetishize a 70-year-old plutocrat with shitty fake hair. I've realized the importance of prayer through my exposure to Christian sites like your channel and have started praying again. I'm also aware that there's nothing that signals the death of morals and the establishment of a collaboration government, so to speak, of hell on earth than abortion. Therefore, I feel that the normal mirth we can get out of seeing people destroy themselves through hedonism is not applicable in case of abortion. There are only two reactions I feel possible in a scenario where the place I was born into, which is already unrecognizable, faces the formal elevation of sexual hunger above life itself. That's beautiful. Perfectly stated. We can despair or we can trust God's judgment and submit ourselves to his protection. The degenerates around us love life, or as they construe it in this case, bodily autonomy, but they shall lose it. Deuteronomy 28 is Ireland's future. I would say it's also its present as well, in my opinion. Therefore, I ask everyone to pray for Ireland and all other countries falling victim to modernism or whatever name fits it. There may only be one solution, but there are definitely only 2 outcomes, life or death. P.S. Another commenter said that it was a good thing for Christianity to be introduced to the Anglo, and despite the meme of mine you graciously featured in Tumblrista 72, Yes, I did. I featured it in this episode as well. I have to agree with them. We have to distinguish between the angle that gains eternal life through faith in God, like the founder of an aforementioned Irish university, and the far more common breed of Anglo who gains eternal infamy through his perfidious actions, like another Anglo who featured in my earlier commentary. Well, it's like poetry, it rhymes. Well, this is all a lot to chew on here. And, I was vaguely familiar with the Sargon of Akkad meltdown. That was, so just a little bit more than a little disturbing. And then what did it say here? If you really wanted to trigger the vitriolic and unconstructive alt-right, the images of Africans you should have posted should have been not African cummies at the expense of cuckold white faggots. So this brings me back to another point, though, is that, it's like you want the white awakening, but you have a lot of these white dudes who get paid to get fucked by black dudes on camera. Interracial, homosexual prostitutes, that's what they are. And where do these people come from? You need a lot of these people in order to make some money off of them. Yeah, I mean, if you really wanted to trigger them, I mean, calling them gay does a trick too, because that's actually true. Them craving the BBC is, that's not something, that's not a rabbit hole they've gone down. And, so, kind of ineffective. But yeah, we elevate sexual hunger above life itself, perfectly stated. And in Ireland, you're seeing that. In English-speaking places, you're seeing that. In the West, you are seeing that, unfortunately. It's like poetry, it rhymes. But, like I said, I explained myself on the Anglo thing. Those who are really, truly converted, they obey it. They don't promote depravity. Hey, Phil, the Swedish church recognizes Judaism as a religion to bring people to God equal to Christianity. As we both know, Judaism is Satanism, so there we go. Well, I've heard somebody say, I've learned this saying recently, that behind every Jew is a Swede. So, hey, Kamano, Filth Kun, everyone's favorite Japanese Aztec non-video artist. In episode 19, you said that Danes were the worst people you've had to deal with, and as a Dane, I must agree with you. Well, here's the problem. Since then, I've come to know Nat and his work, and what a fine individual he is. He's the one who told me about the behind every Jew is a Swede saying, so, I've changed my stance on Denmark a little bit. However, I did read a Vice headline back during the winter season last year that Danish sex shop workers are seeing an uptick in strap-ons being sold to heterosexual couples. Male-female couples, what does that say? That says a lot of things that turns my hair gray. Yes, in Denmark, everyone is equal. This means that all are noble, all that are noble are pulled down to the level. I'm bad with words today, I'm putting them in the right order. So that all that are noble are pulled down to the level of the lowest common denominator. Men are pussified at a young age, learn to sit still and be quiet and docile. So you could be henpecked by some strong woman. You have to a woman can't have worth in being beautiful and her body and mind and spirit. No, she has to have a good mind. Wow, you're really smart. You have a job. Nearly every single Dane is Marxist egalitarian. And this is funny because everybody says Denmark is the happiest place on earth. No, they aren't. They just say that as to not rock the boat. We recently allowed judicial gender change so men can dodge the draft and ogle on little girls in the public pool changing rooms. Even the majority of Christians believe ass sex to be holy, in the sense that it is above criticism and in the sense that the priests bless it in public churches. Bleak, 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 bleak all around. An out clause was added so that priests didn't have to do it if they had bad feelings about it, but since judicial gender change has been enacted, it's impossible to dodge it now. Just wanted to let you know, God promised that he wouldn't end the world with a flood again, but could we convince him to use fire soon? Well, you're righteous, Nat is righteous, so God will not destroy Denmark because of you two. So, for Denmark's sake, keep yourselves something worthy of God's preservation, please. And I hope a few learn from your example so that the righteous may multiply. But, flood, fire, I don't know. It's easy to see where God is working, where God inflicts his wrath, if you just look for it. It's not so, I know that I said the end times will be obvious. but God punishing people here on Earth, you have to do a little bit of digging. But once you see the pattern, it's not very hard to find. Smash that play button. Smash that early 2000s one-hit wonder button. Smash it. Well, Smash Mouth actually had a couple of hits, so not a one-hit wonder. What is your favorite food? Beef jerky. Are you into urban exploration? I heard you mention you watch exploration vids on that Rebel Yell podcast or broadcast. Yeah, I don't do it myself, but I like to watch videos of it. I think it's pretty cool. I like seeing people explore the ruins of a decaying civilization. It's kind of neat. This question more than likely has been asked about what led you to create this channel. I don't know. I got pissed off one day, registered a domain, and started doing podcasts sometime after that. That's what happened. It was a passion thing. I woke up and there it was, man. There was like a song. No, not a song. There were videos. And, yep, that's just how it went. I got real pissed off, and then I made this. And it doesn't sound like it early on because, I was in the making friends, try not to step on any toes phase, but that doesn't get you anywhere. How do you feel about Alex Jones? He's a good entertainer. Where in the world would you most prefer to live? I don't have a preferred location. Maybe Belize is a bug out place because I don't have to learn a new language there. And then finally, pew pew indeed, nigga. I don't even know where to start. I spent the last several years in California and finally decided to move back to Middle America due to sky-high rental prices and being surrounded by rainbow-wrapped poop dick. I've been met with warm fanfare and prodigal son-esque greetings on my return, but I find I've returned to the exact same drugs and booze-laden hell that chased me out to California in the first place. Out to California, not out of. Only now there are more drugs, everybody has slightly less hair, and significantly more paunch. I get it, my friends were degenerates before and they are degenerates now, losers with little else in life beyond their next drunken night. This is not expected, and phasing them out of my life is mandatory. And this reflects a lot of the reasons for the heroin epidemic, it seems. Or at least it shows that it's not just the heroin epidemic. Nihilism permeates every corner of society, and it's very sad. What really blew me away was how far off the deep end one of my very closest friends has gone. On the surface, this is a man who has his shit together, works a high-paying job, has lots of interesting hobbies, and maintains an existence that doesn't revolve around the next substance he can cram in his nose or pour down his throat. Full disclosure, I am in the process of walking away from my fedora tipping, and this man was the supreme tipper in my life. We spent much of our younger years laughing at the concept of my magical sky daddy and other superfluous arguments. Upon meeting up with my buddy, we caught up, discussed personal issues and so forth. He's one of my oldest friends, not much is kept between us. He'd been sliding into his own deviancy over the past few years, but I was pretty damn shocked when he told me he literally participated in cuckold fetishism as the bull. Oh my. This is what happens when you lead a godless life, when you're held to no standard. You're just like, whatever, I do what I want. He literally fucks a friend's girlfriend on tape, and she humiliates said friend with it for his own fucked up perversions. My buddy's just in it for the sex, or so he claims. Well, it doesn't matter, because look at the destruction he's causing. Look at the humiliation, look at the insecurity he is causing. And he's willingly participating in it. So for him, it's just sex, bro, but it's not just that for him. What he is doing extends far beyond him. This is it, man. This is fucking it. I'm still at a loss for how much disgust I feel at my friend. And we had just another one. A guy who knows some people who are into cuckolding. How prevalent is this? Man, big if true, right? This man was my best friend. More than that, he was a moral arbiter for me for much of my life. Sage wisdom, IQ to the moon, and what I had thought was a fairly virtuous heart. To see the mask pulled off, I don't know how to describe the disgust. Well, that's what godlessness gets you. Taking this info to my sister, the closest person in my life, I was met with, who are you to judge? You don't fuck other people's girlfriends or wives. You are in a perfect position to judge. Don't let anybody lie to you when they say that the Midwest lacks the moral apathy of the coasts. Yeah, exactly. Look, I'm sure there are decent pockets. There are decent pockets everywhere. There are decent pockets even in California. But we can't focus on exceptions. We can't. It's dangerous. It makes you naive. Drug gluttons on my left and Gables to my right, and here I am, stuck in the middle with you. Do not place your faith in man, especially 150 IQ Anglos who think they're smarter than God. Depravity everywhere. You cannot escape it. It will encroach on your personal life. It does affect you. Whether you're paying taxes, whether you're just having a drink with a buddy. It will affect you. It will find you. It will cause you great emotional discomfort, psychological unease. You name it. You'll get it. It will affect you. Anyway, I think that's it's a good place as any to call it for now. This has been Common Filth Radio, episode 107. Thank you very much for listening. Don't forget to check out Common Filth Extra, free all week long. Of course, you can pay if you want to over at commonfilthradio.bandcamp.com. Check it if you have anything on Amazon to buy, amazon.com. Use the affiliate link below. Click on that. It'll take you to the front page of Amazon, search for your items, add to your cart, check out within 24 hours of clicking on that link, and I get a percentage of whatever you buy at no extra cost to you. Also, check out the stickers I have for sale, White Girls Fuck Dogs stickers, fun for the whole family, $3 plus shipping and handling. International shipping is available. So with all that being said, you all be good to each other. Don't cuck each other. That's a terrible thing to do. So yes, and getting cucked, that's not a good way of taking care of yourself. So, please, take care of yourselves, be good to each other, and I will talk to you later.